Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. It's the Homestand Show. I'm Albert Vartanian. And to my right is my co-host and one very, very happy Liverpool fan. He has 7 reasons to be happy on this Monday.
These things just don't happen in sport, do they, right?
Yeah.
Two giants meeting in one team, just not just destroying, smashing, but dismantling the opponent.
Yes.
What a Sunday that
Feels
was.
good. You were really happy yesterday.
I was very happy.
For those that don't know, Liverpool beat Manchester United 7-0 in the Premier League. Massive rivalry, similar to
Leafs-Habs.
Leafs-Habs, right?
I think so, yeah.
So imagine the Leafs
Yeah.
or the Habs beat the other team 7-0.
But like 14-0 though.
40, yeah, the equivalent.
That would be the equivalent.
14-0. Coming up on the show, we got a good show today. Matthew Barnaby, Bet99 and former NHL player, joins us to talk everything going on in the NHL, as well as Derek Carr. He signed a big deal with the New Orleans Saints. We also have Chris Johnston. We're going to talk about post-trade deadline, what that life is like, what's going on with the Leafs, and Noor Zainab jumps in as well to tee up the Raptors against the Nuggets. They're kicking off their Western Road swing tonight. All right, let's get to the news. Derek Carr, he signs a big deal with the New Orleans Saints. 4 years, $150 million. Everyone thought he was going to the Jets. No, he goes to the Saints. So now what happens with Aaron Rodgers? Does he go to the Jets or does he stay in the cabin in the woods?
I think he stays in the cabin in the woods.
I think so too. He seems to like. He can retire and have money, be in the cabin in the woods.
You know, everyone leaves him alone.
The Jets will still need a quarterback.
Be introspective, contemplative.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it. Much
Strange
better idea.
man, rich man,
Rich man, strange man, fun to watch.
not a poor man.
Is he? Okay, Rodgers or Brett Favre? Who you having?
Oh, Brett Favre.
Yeah, every time?
And I'm not even going to back that up with. I just like Brett Favre.
He has some
I mean,
weirdness to him, though,
after
as
the
well.
Vikings thing, a couple of pictures came out where no one really wanted to see what was going on there. We got to see it. I'm going to go with Brett Favre. All right, we had a crazy weekend in the world of sports.
Yes.
Let's give out some shout-outs. You want to start off with Alexa Grasso.
Yeah, I tell you what, UFC 185 was really interesting, compelling viewing. And that bout in particular, obviously Shevchenko was by far the huge favorite, and it's worth it just to watch Joe Rogan's reaction. You know, when these big shocks happen, Joe Rogan just goes bananas outside the ring there. And like, Joe, you have watched these before. These do happen every now and again. But she was so aggressive, I thought. She was so confident. Shevchenko seemed, I don't know, did she take it for granted a little bit, perhaps?
I don't know.
She was winning the fight, I think, at that point.
If there's any fighter that's been a lock over the past 3 to 4 years, it's Shevchenko. She ran through everybody. And like back to Rogan, he gets so excited for the most interesting things. When Grasso took her back, did you see how she took her back?
Yeah, like
that was so smooth.
Greatest takedown ever in
and
the
I
history
enjoy
of...
the passion of it, though.
Yeah, me too.
right?
I think it's fantastic.
You need that. And there was speaking of passionate, Conor McGregor was in attendance when it won Jake Gyllenhaal after Jake Gyllenhaal won his first UFC fight on Saturday. Viva Mexico is right. Grasso becomes the first Mexican female UFC champion. There's 3 of them now. Yair Rodriguez is an interim champion, but still counts nonetheless. The odds were crazy. She closed at plus 750, 25-1 to win by submission. So credit to whoever bet that. You made a lot of money. And if you bet on Kurt Kitayama this weekend to win the Arnold Palmer Invitational, you made some serious dough as well. 220-1. He pulls it off in what was a fantastic tournament. Listen to this. He made $3.6 million winning that tournament. Over his career, James, $4.2 million. Not as much as you made throughout your career.
No, not quite as much.
But not bad for a day's work.
Yeah, and it seemed, I found it interesting after he'd won how popular this guy is, how everyone were just willing him to win this thing. Even Rory, who came really close, came a shot back, was like, really happy to see him win this. A really nice dude, apparently. Was called The Project early in his career because he had all this raw talent but couldn't ever get it together. And now he's got it together on the PGA. Yeah. So, where they can build from, I don't know, but a nice story.
Nice story. Project was one of the nicknames, as was Quadzilla, because he's got some pretty big quads. He beat McIlroy, Spieth, and Scheffler. No one could make a putt on the 18th, but he did a big one to win the Arnold Palmer Invitational. The Players coming up this week on Thursday. No Tiger Woods, though, which is very disappointing. All right, another shout out from me. The Suns and the Mavericks were putting on a fantastic matinee game. You got to see some stars. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic. Listen to these numbers. KD, 37 points. DB, 36. Doncic, 34. Irving, 30. And there was a little bit of a tete-a-tete between these two, Booker and Doncic. No love lost there. And here's what Doncic had to say about the incident.
What did Booker say to piss you off?
I don't think you can say that in camera.
He was talking to you or he was talking to the ref?
No, he was talking to me. It's fine. It's just a competitive game, man. It's It's all good. Just next time, don't wait till it's 3 seconds left to talk.
People want rivalry in sport, and there is one here in the NBA.
What was that though exactly? I mean, if you
So
haven't
basically
seen
what
it,
happened was-
Google it because it's pathetic.
It is.
It's
yeah.
one of those smile fights when neither guy really wants to get into it.
It's a soccer fight.
Yeah. Well, there's more
You don't want to throw a
emotion
hand.
and passion in that game
That's
at
true.
Anfield in the weekend.
Yeah, these two
than
have kind
that.
of gone at it for a while, right? In the last year's playoffs, the Mavs dumped out the
there's history
Suns.
there. But I mean, listen, it was a really great NBA weekend, though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
You
it
know,
was.
with these storylines, some big games, good performances. Bit
The
of
Suns are
controversy.
scary. 3-0 with KD. Booker and Durant are averaging 63 points in just 3 games together. And KD hasn't lost a step. He won that game with a little fadeaway. He just knocks down shots. He looks sharp. I mean, if I'm a betting man, I like the Suns to go all the way.
Remember last summer how he was on the move, or so we heard, and all the arguments were, well, he's in his mid-30s. You can't commit that much money to him now or term. He's over the hill. No, he's not.
No,
he's as good as ever.
fantastic.
He's absolutely brilliant right now, like transformative. Just an incredible player.
And you look at Chris Paul, who's a good player. He's like an afterthought on that team. You have Paul, Booker, Durant, and DeAndre Ayton, who's kind of going unnoticed in that team as well, picking up all those dirty baskets under the net. Speaking of dirty baskets and who needs them to make the playoffs, the Toronto Raptors, they play the Denver Nuggets tonight. We'll get into that with Noor Zainab later on the show. But coming up next, it is Noor Zainab.
It is Noor
I was going
Zainab.
to throw
Yep.
to Matt Barnaby. See, I almost threw myself off there. It is Noor
Noor has
Zainab
a priority in
coming
this
up
show.
to talk Raptors and Nuggets.
We're gonna have to play well, no matter who we're playing, where they are in the standings. What you know what I'm saying? So we're gonna have to figure out how to go play well in Denver, and if we do, we'll be in there. We'll give ourselves a chance to win.
Toronto Raptors kick off their 3-game road swing tonight, and yes, it's against the Denver Nuggets and the favorite to win the NBA MVP Nikola Jokic. James Sharman to my right, and in comes the host of Hoop Talks, Noor Zainab. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're
Thanks
doing
for
well.
having
So
me.
I want to talk about this Toronto Raptors team. So they split with Washington. They win their last game on Saturday night. But I can't really get a read on this team. They can be really good for a stretch and then be the complete opposite for another stretch. What are Toronto?
Confused, I would say. And I think, honestly, my take on the whole Raptors this year is, if you think you know this team, you're lying. You don't know this team, because every other month they change their direction. They change what they look like. They change what's not working and what is working. And it's the most confusing part is nothing's changed much since last year. Last year they went to the playoffs. They played against Philly. They went to game 6. Like, they were in the playoff race. They were 6th seed. They were 5th seed, I believe. So they were able to do everything with the same squad. And yes, the East got better. You saw DeJounte Murray come into the Atlanta Hawks. You saw the Celtics get stronger. You also saw the Brooklyn Nets have their problems there, but it was just the matter was, like, you have the same coach, the same team, the same personnel, everybody. So what's happening here? And I think really the matter is this team is still a couple pieces away from being who they really are. And you got us yourself a center, which is great, but look at their offense. Their offense is struggling night after night. The game 1 against Wizards they were shooting 40% from the field.
That's
a problem. That's a huge problem. What do they need for that? They need to have a ball shot creator, a facilitator, someone there whose primary job is to put the ball in the guy's hands. You don't have that with the Raptors.
Fred's kind of turning it around a little bit since the 3 games he's been back. 25 points, 10 assists, no turnovers, just 2 turnovers, by the way, in the last 3 games for Fred VanVleet. But he's the guy who is becoming that facilitator. I think they want Pascal to be that as well. I mean, we saw it on Saturday against Washington, just the 15 points, only a bucket made in the second half, but he was able to facilitate. So I want to ask you this, fill in the blank. Blank has to be Toronto's absolute best player for them to make the playoffs.
There's a couple guys there that can take that role, and I think
And it could be Nick Nurse. If you want to throw him in there as well.
I completely believe. I can agree
You
with
got
that
one
too.
choice, by the way. You know that.
There's
Yeah.
too many. I would say Fred's a pretty close spot, because as we saw when Fred wasn't playing well in the game 1 against the Wizards, he came back in game 2. We actually won that game. But I think for me, Fred does a lot on the court. He's shooting, he has to facilitate, and he was defending the best guard on the other team, Bradley Beal, in the 4th quarter. That's exactly how we actually were able to get that win, with Freddie being the guy on the defensive end. But who's your main guy on this team? Pascal Siakam. Who gets paid the big bucks? Pascal Siakam. Who's supposed to be your main star? Pascal Siakam.
And who wants the Supermax?
Who wants Supermax? Who wants to be top 5 in the league one day? It's Pascal Siakam. I love him. I think he's a great player. But this is the time where he has to come through now. He's averaging 20 points in the past 5 games. Not good enough. 24 on the season. Not good enough. If you want to take this team and make it to the 6th seed, go climb over the Bulls. Sorry, we're actually climbing over them already, but climb over the Knicks, climb over the Heat. You need to have your best player on the team help out, because when he's helping out, you get guys like Freddie and Gary Trent and OG who become open, because it creates the floor for everybody else to have a good shot then too.
But he's making $37 million next year. $37 million. Then he's a free agent, of course, and looking for that max deal. If you are the Raptors, listen, you've got a couple of years to worry about it. I understand that, but the speculation will begin pretty soon. You want to have someone you can rely on. If he's going to sign that kind of deal, you have to know what you have. You can't have a guy that takes a game off every now and again. Isn't perhaps the leader that you expect him to be. I mean, how big is the next 2 years for this guy, and how confident are you, as a close Raptors observer, to seeing this guy sign that deal in 2024?
I think this is the main conversation happening right now, because when Pascal was on the come up and we saw him get those championships, help out Kawhi, be that guy, we saw his potential. And I think he's the kind of guy, because we've seen his growth over time. He's not linear. He only gets better. And he makes his game a wide range. So now you see him where if he's not scoring, he's facilitating. But unfortunately, if you want to be the top 5 guys you said you want to be, and the big ask that we have of him as a Raptor fan and as people of Toronto who want to see this team win, is what do you do in the playoffs? If you're not able to get this team to a 6th seed in the regular season, what can we expect from you in the playoffs? That's where stars are made. That's where superstars are made. That's where your team goes further. You create a market for your team. But if Pascal Siakam can't be that guy, your number 1, then the Raptors have to go look up for a different number 1.
So what do you think? What's your gut tell you, though?
I think Siakam is a great number 2.
Okay.
He's a great number 2 to have on a team, because we saw with Kawhi, if you have a number 1 guy on your squad and he's drawing the attention, Siakam is the best guy to have there, who can then shoot threes. He can spin onto the block. He can do layups. He can dunk everything. But he's not going to be, unfortunately, I think, your main guy.
No, I don't think so either. You can't put up 28 points over 2 crucial matchups against the Washington Wizards and expect that you're going to go deep in the playoffs if you even make it there. So I think the level of concern for Nick Nurse is probably high on Pascal Siakam, considering you're not getting a lot of support from elsewhere. I mean, Gary Trent Jr. was really good off the bench on Sunday, but on Thursday he wasn't. OG, not really hitting shots. Fred, if he's not getting his shots, he's still trying to find his rhythm. You need Pascal to be at his best, and right now he isn't. So they embark on this 3-game road swing in the West: Denver, the Clippers, and then the Lakers. So let me ask you this. At the end of this road trip, will the Raptors be over 500?
Oh, Albert. So
It's a very,
Yeah,
it is a very, very difficult road trip. The Clippers just snapped their winning streak. I mean, the Lakers, no LeBron, but we saw what Anthony Davis can do when called upon.
Yeah, I mean, it's the matter is, like, you're playing the Nuggets tonight. They're the best team in the Western Conference. They're 1 game behind the Bucks as well. And you have the reigning MVP and Nikola Jokic. They're 29-4, I believe, at home. The Raptors are not great on the road either. They're 20-14, I believe. So that means you want to be above 500. You got to win at least 2 of these games that's coming up, in the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Nuggets. Do I think the Raptors can do that? No.
Do they take 1 from the 3?
I think they can take 1. I think they can take 1 against the Lakers, but I think Clippers and Nuggets will be a very tough task.
You know what? I have a feeling they win tonight against Denver. I know it's crazy to say, because Denver's second unit, not very good. They're about middle to bottom in the league. And what does Nick Nurse do? He runs his horses. That first unit, if they're going up against the Nuggets' bench, they have a serious chance. But you're going to need someone to close it out. And hopefully they shoot more than 40%
So you're saying
from the
we'll
field.
give them their 5th loss ever at home?
I like the Raptors.
Plus, it's Monday night.
I'm going out
They're
on
cruising to the West right now. Complacency kicks in. We'll take care of these guys.
And they're dogs, right? The
like
Raptors
that.
are dogs. They lead the league in steals. They're top.
So you're putting
in
money
blocks,
on the Raptors tonight?
I will bet, and I will bet, and I will tweet it, and I'm going to tag Noor Zainab.
You know why, though? I will say, take it easy, because the last time I was like, you know what? The Raptors got the Wizards, guys. It's the Wizards.
Yeah.
The Wizards split it. So
It's so
I like
strange.
that.
They have a better record. Yeah, they have a better record against teams above 500 than under. 16-14.
They're the
against-
I never
Robinson
trust
of
those
the
teams
NBA.
like that, though. I never trust those kind of teams.
What's it with the Leafs and the Toronto Raptors against bad teams?
Bad teams, yeah, because they play down to their opponents, right?
So,
and the better teams, often not so much the Leafs, but Raptors, the better teams play down to them because, take them for granted, right?
Okay, so let's
No,
get away
sure.
from the Raptors quickly. Some more NBA news. Sharms really want to talk about this. Mr. John Morant. I don't know what's wrong with this guy, but he was seen. He posted an IG video in a strip club with no shirt on. He had a gun, trying to show off. I don't know what he was trying to show off.
He wasn't stripping, by
So
the
he's
way,
been
right?
suspended by the team. Yes.
He just had his shirt off. Just
Yes.
to the
What's wrong with this guy?
What isn't wrong?
What is he
with
trying? I'm
John
trying to figure out
Morant
what is
right
he
now?
trying to prove. I don't know too much about
Well,
him.
he's the hardest man in the NBA. Man nails this guy. That's what it is, right? It must be. Look at me. He's trying to prove to everyone else that I am street man. I am
That's what it is.
I am
Isn't that-
street
I
man.
love that. It nails.
nails. I'm going to get all these typical British slang terms
Yeah.
into this show. I promise
No, but
you.
seriously, this guy, one of the best players in the league, one of the most entertaining players in the league, and he's doing this. Why?
I wish I could tell you. I wish his dad could tell you. I wish they could sit down with a therapist and let us know what's going on over here, because this, you know what has happened here too? It all started to act up right after Giles was super confident, being like, oh, I'm not worried about anybody in the Western Conference. I only care about the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference. And then he ended up getting in his own way. And it's not just been about him being on the strip club. He's brought the gun on the plane. He's beaten up a 15-year-old guy. He's pointed the laser beam at the Pacers staff. And at that point, I'm like, his dad is there every single game, courtside, you know, being the loudest, proudest fan. Where is he when Ja has to be literally parented?
But you can only, I mean, Ja is an adult. He's
Yeah,
not a
I mean,
child,
that
right?
makes sense,
He's making
yeah.
his own decisions. I mean, he is one of the faces of the NBA. He's not just a good player.
Well, and that's the
one
issue,
of the
right?
faces of the NBA.
Yeah, he's 27 points a game player,
Yeah.
right? On a really good team. If he was some bench role player somewhere, he would have been out of the league by now.
And a
think
good
so.
team,
Too
a winning
bad.
team, it makes no sense.
Well, listen, Demetrius Ja Morant, figure your stuff out for the NBA. Noor Zainab, thank you so much. She's the host of Hoop Talks. Make sure you follow her on Twitter at Noor Zainab. All right, joining us now is former NHLer and Bet99 ambassador Matthew Barnaby, live from a golf simulator. How you doing, Matt?
I'm good. I got new clubs today. They've been a long time ordered, and hopefully it helps my game. But yeah, right after this, I'm playing Pebble Beach, so we'll be all good.
Oh, I love that. What are you swinging this year? TaylorMade?
They are all tailor-made. Everything's tailor-made except for the ping putter, the new ping putter. Beautiful. Like I said, hopefully helps my game. I need it.
I love that. We'll get into some golf later on in the chat. I want to talk about Kirk Kitayama, the Players' Championship, and all that. But let's start with some NFL news. Derek Carr decides to sign with the New Orleans Saints, not going with the Jets. It's a big deal for 4 years. Your thoughts on it?
You know what? He's one of the guys that we coveted. I think as Jets fans, it's been a struggle. I want to say 40 years. I've been a fan for 40 years now, since I've been 9 years old. Listen, we have a really good team. Derek Carr, I think, would have been a really good fit, but obviously he couldn't wait around. He had to make a decision, and New Orleans was ready to pay him the money. So good for him. I still think we're in the running for Aaron Rodgers. I'd rather Lamar Jackson. Those two certainly are on the radar, but a great deal. You got a good quarterback in New Orleans in Derek Carr. I think he's very, very good. But listen, if I have my choice, give me Lamar. It's not my money. I'll give him the $250 million. And we can go from there. But I'm still excited with who we're going to add in the near future.
Well, he's been on social media, and he's pretty, I guess, emotional is the right word to use here. He says, I once said that if I'm not a Raider, I would rather be at home, and I meant that. But I never envisioned it ending this way, Carr said. That fire burning inside of me to win a championship still rages. A fire no man can extinguish, only God. All right. As a former professional athlete, do you get that?
I do get that. I do get that, and I also understand he probably got that quote from Aaron Rodgers from the dark room that he's been in for 4 days. So I really think those are the kind of quotes that you give when you've been put away for a while. But yeah, like, listen, he's a very good quarterback. I don't think he gets his right due on how good he really is. Is he top 5? No. Top 10? Maybe. Top 15? Absolutely. And I think there is that burning desire. Listen, he's made a lot of money already. He's making a lot more going forward. But everyone, I never won a Stanley Cup. I never won a championship. But near the end of my career, even though I wasn't elite, I wasn't a Hall of Famer, but that burning desire to win certainly was there. So I can understand that part of it. And hopefully for him, I don't think they have the team in the near future to do that. But I am happy for a guy like Derek Carr. That's a really good quarterback and seems like a really good person.
Yeah, same. 4 years, 150 million is the deal for Derek Carr to the New Orleans Saints. Let's transition to the NHL. I want to get your take on what's going on at Tampa Bay right now. They're kind of slipping. On Saturday, John Cooper sat his top line for the entire third period, and on Sunday they come back and they get waxed by the Hurricanes 6-0. What are your thoughts on Cooper sending out that message to his stars?
It's a slippery slope, but I think if there's anyone that's earned the right to push the right buttons, it's a guy like John Cooper. He's articulate, he's smart, he's a great coach, and that team's been through a lot in the last decade with him at the head of that whole beast. So they've won 2 Stanley Cups. It's one period, and I think we obviously in the media we have to blow it up because these are their 3 best players, arguably, at least their 3 best forwards, being sat out and being called out. So it's a slippery slope, but I think the relationship between John Cooper and his superstars is very, very good. I thought they would respond. I didn't touch the game. I did not bet the game against Carolina. Carolina is a juggernaut as well, but I was curious to see how it would unfold, and certainly losing 6-0 doesn't play into the hand. They've struggled for about 6 weeks now. They've really struggled. It's been a tough team to bet from the betting standpoint. But if there's one team that can turn it around and certainly has the character and a great coach, it's the Tampa Bay Lightning and John Cooper.
When you played, you did the dirty work. You play that bottom 6 a lot. You made space for the stars. When the stars in your team weren't engaged, did it piss you off?
It did. I mean, I'd say it depending on what team it was. For the most part, when you have a successful team, you're led by your top 6. But yeah, when your stars did take the night off, and there were certain guys, a guy like Alexei Kovalev is a perfect example. Unbelievable player, but from Tuesday to Friday, you didn't know what you were going to get. He could be the best player in the league, or he could be the absolute worst player on the ice and not give a crap about how the game unfolded. So that was very, very frustrating. I think, when you're a bottom 6 guy and you work your butt off, because you need to work your butt off just to stay in the league and to help the team. Anytime you make a mistake, you're thrown to the wolves. You're the one that's benched. And I think the frustrating part for bottom 6 guys and role players in general are watching star players kind of go through the motions and never having answer the bell. Coaches are afraid of them. Coaches are afraid of losing them. And I think that's very frustrating when you see it over and over. So you have to respect a guy like John Cooper for setting a standard. And he said, these guys have set the standard that we expect every single night, and we all adhere to that standard. So when they aren't playing up to that level and they don't give us a chance to win, I think it just garners so much more respect from everyone throughout that lineup. And, it's hard for the stars to maybe sit one period. It's one period. Let's not make more of it than it is. It's just adhering to a standard that they expect every single night.
I think it'd be more than what it is if it happened in the Toronto Maple Leafs dressing room. I mean, Sheldon Keefe probably doesn't have the luxury to sit his players the same way that John Cooper does. Let's talk about the Leafs. They brought in 6 new players, and that's being talked about a lot. Maybe it's throwing off the chemistry of the team. I want to take you back to 2002 when you went to the Rangers. In March, the Rangers brought in 6 players, and Pavel Bure, Rem Murray being 2 of those players. So what's it like being in the dressing room when I know you were new to the team, but when all these new players come in, how does that throw everything off?
Yeah, obviously there's a chemistry part of it, right? Like there's that chemistry on the ice. One guy's come in and guys leave. It's always tough to see guys leave, especially if they're popular guys. But guys that coming in, as long as they're good guys, and you spoke to that fact, Pavel was great. Rem Murray was great. Everyone that I played with in New York, they were great people. Our trouble with New York was we had too many star players, and there just wasn't enough ice time for all of them to be happy, because all those guys look at, I can look at myself, and even if I don't score in 7 or 8 or 10 games, whatever it is, it's not going to play mentally into me, because I know that's my secondary role on the team. First is to work hard. First is to be a good teammate and protect my teammates. And if I score, that's just a bonus. But for those guys that might come from Florida or come from another team and not be on the first power play unit when they're expected to roll over, or they're accustomed to rolling over the bench every time there's a power play, and now they start to see their stats where they score 70 or 80 or 90 points. Now they're getting 50 or 55 points. it plays hard on them. I think that's the main thing. It's not essentially the guys coming in. Essentially, it's the roles that might be expected of them that could be different from the teams that they were. I went to Colorado. We talked about this before. I think we had 8 new guys come into Colorado when I went there in 2004, and it was a perfect transition. We did well right away. We ran into injuries, but I think if you have great leadership, great character, then certainly you can have success. And we'll have to wait and see how that plays out for the Toronto Maple Leafs once they get to the playoffs. See, these are still a young core group of guys, but the expectations are Stanley Cup or bust, and that's not going to change. And right now in the Eastern Conference, it's absolutely loaded, and no one's close to the Boston Bruins.
But quite honestly, I mean, they've got 20 games left or whatever it is. You start a training camp each year, and you have maybe 4 or 5 preseason games. You might get into 3 or 4 of them, perhaps. 20 games should be long enough, right, to gel if they're going to gel, right? That should be an excuse.
It will not be an excuse. I think it's more of an excuse for people that don't have success, not sex. Success.
That works too.
It works too, as well. But yes, I truly believe that's just an excuse for people. You don't need 2 months to gel. It does take a little bit of time. It takes 5, 6, 7 games, but there's ample runway for these guys before they get to the playoffs. By the time they get to the last 10 games of the year and into the playoffs, they should be rolling on all cylinders and know exactly who fits well together, what power play units work well together. So that's not an excuse for me.
Leafs off tonight, but back in action tomorrow night against the New Jersey Devils. Matt, let's get to your picks. A 2-5-10 on a 6-game NHL slate.
Yeah, I'm going with Vancouver tonight at home. I didn't think I'd ever say that, betting Vancouver, but I am a Rick Tocchet fan. I'm a Sergei Gonchar fan, and my good buddy from Colorado, Adam Foote, the only guy to ever have a penalty for having an illegal curve on his nose. I actually called the ref over one day and asked him to measure it, and he was so pissed off at that time. My 5 is the Ottawa Senators playing Chicago. Chicago's horrible. They're trying to lose. Ottawa's playing great in the last 5-6 weeks. So I'm taking the Ottawa Senators for my 5, and my 10 is going against my old Buffalo Sabres. Give me the Edmonton Oilers. Give me Connor McDavid. Just keep filling the net. They are going to win that game at least 4-1 tonight. So that is my 10-unit play.
All right, so it's Vancouver 2 units, 5 units on the Sens, and 10 on the Oilers. Matthew Barnaby, thank you so much. Let's do this again soon.
Cheers, boys. Wish me luck. Pebble Beach, it awaits, minus the $675 American to play it.
All right, good luck, buddy.
Enjoy.
All right, that was Matthew Barnaby, former NHLer, Bet 99 ambassador.
I've ever heard.
That's great.
I love it.
He brought the ref over to measure the curve
with his nose.
on Adam. I met Adam Foote once. Really nice guy.
Yeah.
I didn't ask him about his nose, but he brought it up. He's like, "Look, I got all my teeth, but my nose is crooked." You know, I love that. I mean, players are great for that stuff.
Craig
right?
Forrest is a story about an old goalkeeper called Grizovic. He has a huge nose, known for it, right? And anyway, you asked him, so how many times did he break his nose? And he goes, never. I was just born this way.
That's just the way it is.
It was.
All right, coming up next, we got some more hockey talk, this time with NorthStar Bets, Chris Johnston. All right, it's time for Inside the NHL with Chris Johnston of NorthStar Bets. Chris, we're on the other side of the trade deadline. How's the come down been from a crazy couple of weeks for you in the NHL?
Yeah, I call this the happy side of the trade deadline, the period where everything tends to kind of calm down around the league. That was really an unprecedented period, actually, the last few weeks for the NHL with the amount of first-round picks traded, some of the big names that went various ways. And I think just the number of teams that kind of went close to all in or all in terms of giving up a lot of draft capital or futures to try to – so this is the fun part because we can really focus in on the playoff races and then ultimately the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And, I'm happy to have.
What was it like working Trade Center for TSN?
It was a lot of fun, actually. I mean, as much as everyone likes to have a good laugh at, the 9 live hours of coverage and all that stuff. I mean, I would argue there's nothing else like it in the sport. You got, skits with Bruce Boudreau, some fun with James Duthie doing a music video about, trying to tank for Connor Bedard. We did a mock draft lottery, and then, in addition, bringing you up to date on the news and analysis from our experts. I think it's a day to have fun. And I think that we found the sweet spot in doing it, because we take it seriously, and that, of course, we're trying to break trades. We're trying to bring you the latest information, but I think we're also, having a laugh at ourselves too, because it is sort of patently ridiculous to do 9 straight hours of trade coverage when you've had as many big trades as we had the 3 weeks leading into it. So, I had a good time that day. I don't think it's going anywhere, and I also think this year might have been a one-off. The fact that there was so many big moves ahead of that final day itself, I'm going to have to see that many years in a row to say that that's the new normal. I think it was just an outlier year where we had so much of the big action already taken care of.
Yeah, I do appreciate the self-deprecation on the TSN broadcast. The Bruce Boudreau segment was absolutely brilliant, by the way. It was hilarious. But you say you think it's an outlier. Why is that? I mean, listen, it made for great theater. It made for great entertainment. The NHL needs these types of domains. Why do you think this was a one-off, and perhaps next year it's going to revert back to normal?
Well, we had really specific circumstances this year. For one, we had a number of teams that declared themselves absolute sellers. We saw that, whether, going way back a few weeks ago, the Leafs made the Ryan O'Reilly trade a couple weeks out from the deadline. We saw the Tarasenko deal to the Rangers, quite early. As things went along, Patrick Kane, Timo Meier, all these guys end up on contenders, a bit of a domino effect there. And also maybe because of the fact that there's a bunch of teams at the bottom of the league, quite frankly, who are not trying to be good. And we had very defined sellers. It almost feels like everything lined up perfect, that you had teams that were absolutely committed to buying and aggressively. And then you had, a number of teams at the bottom end of the standings absolutely committed to selling and willing to do it. Seeing a team like St. Louis sell as many players as they did. This was supposed to be a year they were trying to make the playoffs. Obviously, things didn't go well there, and they ended up trading a lot of their veterans away. Washington sold players. We're not used to seeing that. Detroit sold players despite being in the playoff race. And so I think teams sort of declared where they were a little bit more definitively than we've seen in the past. And, I think eventually we're going to go back, that the cap's going to go up in a meaningful way that it hasn't in recent years. And I think we'll just see a more traditional deadline that goes down to the wire as time goes along. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. That's just my feeling now. I don't think 1 year, though, is going to necessarily tell us this is a new trend.
So just coming down, Ryan O'Reilly, broken fingers being put on the LTIR, according to Sheldon Keefe. They were talking after practice today. What does that mean for O'Reilly's timeline being on the LTIR?
Well, it means he has to be out at minimum 24 days. So, you're looking 3+ weeks from where we sit now, with about 5.5 weeks left in the regular season. I think that's going to be what we're measuring it upon is can Ryan O'Reilly get back during the regular season? If so, how many games can he play? This is pretty much a worst case scenario for a new player on a team, and especially given that we're talking about someone who was brought in as a rental, at the expense of a 1st-round pick plus some other assets. Those guys more than anything. I mean, Ryan O'Reilly doesn't need games up to date in this league. He's been around for a long time, of course, but I think getting him comfortable in the lineup, figuring out his exact place, that was still very much a work in progress for Sheldon Keefe. We'd seen him moved around a little bit as would be expected to find out where he best fits with the Leafs, and the fact that, he's now unavailable for at least most of the rest of the regular season at minimum. It's hard to put a positive spin on that. I suppose the positive is there is plenty of time for him to get back and be ready to play those playoff games. But, for those that were seeing this move as a little bit like Nick Foligno of a couple years ago, this is an unfortunate, further parallel, because part of what doomed Foligno's time with Toronto 2 seasons back was that he had a back injury and just was never healthy enough to make a difference. You hope that's not the case for Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah, I thought the exact same thing, but a broken finger, listen, obviously not ideal, but you can still stay in shape with a broken finger, away from the rink, not playing games, obviously, and you would hope that by playoff time, he's just fine. But, it's Toronto here, CJ. Obviously, the deadline's passed, so we can now speculate about the future of GMs and that type of thing. Kyle Dubas, listen, I don't think he could do much more than he did before the deadline. He addressed all the needs his team needed pretty much. Is his future still contingent very much on success in the playoffs? Because at this point, he can't do any more. He's brought the players in. Most people are saying, yep, job well done. At what point does he deserve that new contract?
Well, in my the season started, I think it's kind of silly to base the future of an organization, the future of someone as important as your general manager, on what happens in a 2-week stretch of hockey in the playoffs. And look, I get it. The Leafs are at a point as an organization where something does have to change, or there will be change. I understand those calls, but the GM is making process-based decisions. The GM really shouldn't be judged, in my opinion, based on one little slice of time, because what he's doing is setting the grounds in place, from the lowest levels of the organization right up to the NHL roster every day to set it up for as many cracks of success as possible. And to me, I don't know how you could argue that Kyle Dubas hasn't done that. The Leafs have not delivered in a Game 7. That's basically what this comes down to. But they have become an absolute class organization in this league. You talk to any other front office, and I do as part of my day-to-day job, the Leafs are at the top in the terms of the way they build out their program, with the way they manage a very tight salary cap picture year after year after year. Kyle Dubas is out there making moves, able to make signings, making creative trades to have it all fit together. I get that ultimately it's a winning business. The Leafs win more than anybody pretty much in the regular season. They're a top 5 team over Kyle Dubas's tenure in terms of total wins as the general manager. I just think it would be crazy to move on from him now, but it's hard to read into anything other than his current situation, that it hinges on what happens in this playoffs. The organization wanted to see him work his final year under this contract. And I think there's danger, quite frankly, depending what happens, maybe he decides to leave. I'm not reporting that based on knowledge, but this is the flip side of when you have a negotiation or you have someone's contract expiring, is they can choose to leave as well. And so, I think the Leafs should have signed him before the season began. They didn't. I think this would be a good time to maybe revisit those talks, because, whether or not they beat the Lightning or not in April, to me, that's not really the judge of his job. The judge of his job is how he's managing this overall large program. And I think that the Leafs have really become a top-class organization under his watch.
Speaking of the team they're most likely going to face in the first round, the Tampa Bay Lightning have been in the news. John Cooper sitting his top line on Saturday, at least for a whole period, and then a bounce back against Carolina on Sunday, them losing 6-0 to Carolina. So not the best weekend for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I was trying to compare that in my head, if that were to be happening in Toronto, if Keefe were to sit his first line, or if they were to lose that same way, what the follow would be for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and what is that for Tampa Bay?
Well, if it was almost anywhere else in the league, it would be a 5-alarm fire. I think what's different about Tampa, of course, is just the success they've had. How long John Cooper's been there, the fact that they've been to 4 Stanley Cup finals with him as their head coach. They've won 2 of them. They've been at the top of the league. I think that there's a different dynamic at place with that team, with that organization, with that coach and those players. I mean, all those players have played for him for a long time. I think there's a deeper trust there. And it's hard to, again, there's no positive spin to be put on what's happened for Tampa. They've been leaky of late. It's a pretty big message to sit your top 3 forwards the way that John Cooper did. When you do that, of course, that's a button a coach can only push so many times. You're looking for immediate responses. They didn't get that in the game against Carolina. But I would suggest to you that the fact that Tampa is unique among all teams in the league right now, that it's probably less of a big deal there than it would be pretty much anywhere else. That being said, you're still looking for that response as we go deeper into this week. The Lightning have been a top-class team, but if things aren't going well, if there isn't able to get some sort of reaction, there's going to be more pointed questions asked. But the Lightning get some benefit of the doubt here, as does John Cooper, as do those star players who've had a long track record of success. And so, the fact there's still 5+ weeks in the regular season, I still see them as a top contender by the time the playoffs begin.
Didn't the Devils fire their coach years ago, right at the end before the playoffs? Jacques Lemaire, I think, got fired, right? And I forget who they brought in there, and they won the cup. Yes, I think it's happened a few times in New Jersey. Once Claude Julien got it late in the season there. But yes, that's Lou Lamoriello. He's done it. Look, I would be shocked. Look, nothing surprises me in sports, but I would be shocked if we're ever talking about John Cooper losing his job before the end of this season. That would be absolutely crazy if that happened. We're talking about one of the best paid coaches, the one that has had the most success. I know this isn't a good look. It was not a good weekend in Tampa, but that group always finds their way out of a funk, and I suspect it'll happen again. It's probably, you would think, complacency to a certain point. That this team, like you said, 3 straight cup finals. They know what awaits them. You can understand why perhaps the foot comes off the gas a little bit at this point in the season, as long as they refine themselves between now and the playoffs. Exactly. And it's part of what I don't like about the divisional playoff format
is that we've known Tampa and Toronto were going to play again for at least a month. If I'm being charitable, it's probably a few months that it's been evident. They know the same thing too, right? And if there's a group that knows what it's like to play, months and months and months beyond the regular season, they've done it consistently. And so if they're maybe, even if it's sort of in the back of their minds, if it's not a conscious decision to conserve some energy or not give everything right now, I think that they understand that, I don't even think home ice matters to them guys either. Like, they won the 2021 Stanley Cup starting every series on the road. I think literally they're a team that has nothing to play for beyond just, formalizing their playoff spot, which again is going to happen in due course just because they've built up enough of a buffer. So it's hard to create or fabricate urgency among a veteran team. I think that's part of what John Cooper's trying to do when you're sitting those players out on a sleepy Saturday game in Buffalo after you're trying to get a reaction. You're trying to spark the system, shock the system, if you will, because I think that the situation or the circumstances don't do it automatically. But look, the playoffs still have some time here, for them to get going. And I don't think we should be firing anyone or saying the Lightning are done or anything like that. I think at your peril, would you say that Tampa's in crisis?
Chris Johnston, thank you so much. Let's do this again soon.
See you next week, boys.
All right, ciao.
Thanks, CJ.
All right, that's Chris Johnston, NHL insider for NorthStar Bets. A lot to take in there.
Yeah, I can't believe they're going to fire John Cooper.
Yeah, that's what you're hoping for, right? But imagine if it was the Toronto Maple Leafs that were dealing with what the Tampa Bay Lightning are dealing with now. Imagine if Keefe sat that first line or a second line and they come back with a big loss the following night.
But it's like Barney said, right? I mean, he's got such currency with that team. He's got 2 cups to his name. He's got 3 finals in 3 years. He can do really whatever he wants at this point. But you're right. If that was Toronto, I mean, it was just like the ends of the worlds are coming.
Oh my
here,
goodness,
right?
yeah.
But maybe it's what the Leafs need every now and again, right? I mean, listen, they've had a great regular season, as CJ said. There, not too many off nights, the top guys, but there's been moments where you say, "Okay, wake up," Austin Matthews line. I think it'd be great to see a coach take that kind of a ballsy approach and just sit those guys for a bit.
He needs a lot more credit in the bank. But unfortunate news with Ryan O'Reilly. I mean, if the Toronto Maple Leafs aren't cursed, I don't know what they are, to be honest. Broken finger, Ryan O'Reilly. I don't know what's next, right? Matthews takes one off the knee. Tavares gets rocked by Myers.
Well, Tavares was wearing the gray shirt today.
Yes, he was. He wasn't in practice. We'll talk about next, wrapping up the show. Welcome back to the Homestand Show. We've reached the end of the show. Albert Vartanian and James Sharman. Thanks to all our guests for coming on today. Chris Johnston of NorthStar Bets. Matthew Barnaby, fantastic with that Adam Foote story.
I honestly, I rarely laugh
You
out
had
loud
tears.
these days, but I was crying.
Yes, you were.
You could just imagine him, right?
He's great.
Asking the referee to come on over. Can you measure the curve on Adam Foote's nose?
I'm not laughing at you, Adam Foote. I love Adam. Don't come here.
What a player he was, by the way.
What a fantastic
Just
player.
So
we were just
stable.
talking about that 2001 Colorado team because on this day in sports history, Ray Bourque was traded from the Boston Bruins to the Colorado Avalanche. They went on to win a Stanley Cup. But that team, Adam Foote, Adam Danmarch, Joe Sakic, Chris Drury, Patrick Waugh.
Adam Danmarch was so fast on NHL 92.
Oh, 92.
Or whenever
what
it
were you
was.
playing
One of
on?
those.
Sega?
Sega.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, I was good as
NHL
well.
92.
I knew some of the cheat codes.
I don't think they had one-timers in that game. That's old school.
I don't think so. I think
No.
94 maybe
94,
that came
nice
around.
show.
Yeah, the one time.
All right, let's bring producer Sean in today. Sean, time to grade us. How was the show today?
Wow. Yeah, do you really
And
want to
by
know?
the way, his grades are not a reflection on any of the guests.
Just
on
you
us.
and
No.
us,
So
yeah.
who would have thought that there'd be better Wi-Fi at the golf simulation than the hotel?
Yes,
for-
this is true. This is true.
No, the show was great. Loved what you guys did with Noor. It was a fantastic segment.
Yeah, I
Uh,
thought she was really good today, actually.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then we had, Barnaby was hilarious as always. Chris with the information. Yeah, no, I think it was a pretty good show. I would have the only thing I would say is you just need a little bit more Sean in there.
Wow.
But
okay.
something to work on, something to get into for the rest of the
Can we
week.
though get your skin tone blown out a little bit more next time?
Yeah, man, what is going
Hey,
on?
this is
there?
me
right now.
This is me grading you, not you grading me. all right?
Sorry.
That's just Sean. That's what Sean looks like in the
Here, let me
windows,
try and
right?
fix it.
I'm glad that you got dressed up
There
for the
we go.
occasion though this time.
Yeah, Simpsons.
We're working
Marshall.
on it. We're working on it.
Uh,
It's
hey,
Halloween somewhere, man. It's Halloween somewhere.
It's not actually.
Shawnee boy, thoughts on Matthew Barnaby's picks for tonight? He's got 2 units on Vancouver, 5 on the Sens, and 10 units on the Oilers. I love the Sens.
Well,
tonight.
I don't have any units in my account after the week I
Oh
had
my
last week.
goodness.
Hey, I was pretty good on the show. You know, I was like 2 for 4 or something. I had 2 for 3 on the show last week.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, love the Sens tonight. Love the Sens. And you've got about 15 seconds to wrap up the show.
All right, well, that's the end of the show. For James Sharman, Sean McCormick, and thanks to all our guests, this has been the Homestand Show. We'll be back tomorrow.